Think about your morning routine. You pour it over cereal. You steam it into a latte. You bake it into cakes. It is so utterly normal that we never stop to ask a very weird question. There are over 5,000 mammal species on planet Earth, and every single one of them produces milk. So why? Out of all the majestic, bizarre, and terrifying creatures roaming the globe, did we collectively decide to hook our entire global food system up to the udders of the cow? Why cow? To understand how bizarre this is, we first have to understand what milk actually is. It is not just some generic white liquid dispensed by Mother Nature. Milk is a highly customized, biologically engineered survival potion. Every species makes a unique recipe perfectly calibrated for its own babies. Human milk, for example, is basically brain food. It is thin, watery, and packed with complex sugars designed to grow our giant, energy-hogging brains. Now, compare that to a hooded seal. A baby seal needs to pack on blubber instantly, so it does not freeze to death on an ice floe. So, mama seal pumps out milk that is over 60% fat. It does not even look like milk. It looks like melted mayonnaise. If you drink a glass of seal milk, you would probably need immediate medical attention. Or look at whales. Whale milk has the consistency of toothpaste so that it does not dissolve in the ocean water before the calf can swallow it. Imagine squeezing a tube of ocean-flavored toothpaste into your morning coffee. Gross, right? Milk is an incredibly specific evolutionary chemical. We're the only species on Earth that drinks the milk of another species, and we do it well into adulthood. But again, out of thousands of custom recipes out there, we chose the cow. To figure out why the cow became the undisputed champion of the dairy aisle, we have to travel back thousands of years to solve a massive biological problem. A problem that technically should have stopped us from drinking milk altogether. Here is the twist. For most of human history, drinking any kind of milk would have completely wrecked your stomach. Mammal milk is loaded with a special sugar called lactose. To digest it, your body needs an enzyme called lactase. When you are a baby, your body produces lactase like a factory. But once you are weaned, your DNA flips a switch and shuts the factory down. It's a biological default. For most animals, and for the vast majority of human history, drinking milk as an adult was a one-way ticket to a digestive disaster. We call it lactose intolerance, but biologically speaking, it is just being normal. So if raw milk was a biological hazard for early humans, how do we ever start consuming it? We cheated. Thousands of years before genetics solved the problem, our ancestors figured out a brilliant culinary workaround. They discovered that if you leave milk inside an animal's stomach pouch, bacteria get to work. These microbes are hungry, and their absolute favorite food is lactose. They eat the stomach-churning sugars and leave behind something magical: cheese and yogurt. By fermenting the milk, ancient humans essentially predigested it. They turned a liquid biohazard into a solid block of safe calories that could last through a freezing winter. Cheese was the ultimate ancient survival hack. But human evolution is incredibly stubborn, and eventually, it caught up to our culinary habits. Roughly 10,000 years ago, a random genetic mutation popped up in populations across Northern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This mutation effectively broke the biological off switch. Suddenly, some adults could keep producing lactase their entire lives. This phenomenon is called lactase persistence. In a harsh world where food was scarce, being able to chug fresh, calorie-rich milk without fermenting at first was a massive superpower. Those lucky mutants thrived and passed the milk-drinking gene along. So, through a combination of clever bacterial fermentation and sheer genetic luck, humanity finally unlocked dairy. We figured out exactly how to safely consume the milk of other animals. But that brings us right back to our original mystery. Just because we could drink milk did not mean we had to get it from a cow. And honestly, for a long time, we did not. Depending on your geographical zip code, cows are actually terrible candidates for dairy. Cows are biological divas. They require lush green pastures, mild weather, and massive amounts of fresh water. If you drop a dairy cow into a scorching desert or a freezing tundra, she's going to have a profoundly bad time. Enter the resilient underdogs. Long before cows became the default, humans were milking sheep and goats. These guys can chew on thorny scrub, scale rocky mountain cliffs, and thrive in arid climates. We have them to thank for feta and pecorino. Let's take a rapid-fire global tour of where cows fail and other mammals rule. Head over to the blistering deserts of the Middle East and North Africa. A cow would instantly roast, but the camel can go days without a drop of water and still produce a salty, vitamin-packed milk that has sustained desert nomads for centuries. Scale the freezing, oxygen-deprived peaks of the Himalayas. You will absolutely not find cows up there, but you will find yaks. Yak milk has double the fat of cow milk. It is essentially heavy cream, perfect for churning into thick, calorie-dense butter to survive the bitter cold. Roam the endless plains of the Mongolian steppes. Nomadic warriors definitely did not ride cows in a battle. They rode horses, and they learned to ferment mare milk into a fizzy, mildly alcoholic beverage called kumis. Yes, Genghis Khan fueled his massive empire on fermented horse milk. Travel up to the freezing Arctic circles of Scandinavia, and indigenous groups are milking reindeer, yielding a liquid so intensely thick it resembles melted ice cream. Meanwhile, down in the humid, swampy wetlands of South Asia, the water buffalo laughs at the mud and heat, producing the incredibly rich milk that gives us authentic mozzarella cheese. We even milked donkeys. Cleopatra famously bathed in donkey milk, but people drank it too because it is surprisingly similar to human breast milk. The point is, human beings are wildly resourceful. Whenever we settled in an extreme environment, we simply milked whatever sturdy herbivore was already living there. We created a global buffet of sheep, goats, camels, yaks, horses, reindeer, buffalo, and donkeys. So, if all these other animals are so incredibly resilient, surviving in places where cows would simply give up, how did the cow win? Out of all these magnificent beasts, how did the humble cow conquer the modern supermarket? To understand why the cow took the crown, we first have to ask a painfully obvious question. If humans love milk so much, why stop at farm animals? Why not milk a zebra, or a moose, or a lion? The answer boils down to the domestication barrier. Milking is an incredibly intimate act. You are approaching a wild animal, reaching underneath it, and grabbing its most sensitive parts. If you try that with a lion, you are not getting breakfast, you are becoming breakfast. You might think, okay, stick to herbivores. But herbivores are not automatically friendly. Zebras are notoriously aggressive, panic easily, and will happily bite your arm off. Moose are massive, territorial, and solitary. They do not want to stand in a neat little line. Pigs are actually great at producing milk, but they are physically difficult to milk. They bite, and frankly, they just hate it. To successfully run a dairy operation, you need an animal with a very specific psychological profile. You need a creature that is highly social, respects a herd hierarchy, tolerates being fenced in, and crucially, does not panic when a weird hairless ape approaches its udders every single morning. Enter the cow. Well, originally the aurochs. Thousands of years ago, the aurochs was a massive, terrifying wild ox. But early humans selectively bred the absolute calmest ones. Over generations, we engineered the modern cow, transforming a fierce beast into a gentle, docile, cud-chewing machine. But personality is only half the story. The cow won the dairy wars because of sheer, unmatched scale. A goat is friendly and easy to milk, but it only gives you about a gallon a day. A sheep gives you even less. A camel is a lifesaver in the desert, but her reproductive cycle is incredibly slow. The cow is the ultimate biological sweet spot. It is massive enough to produce an absolute geyser of milk, but docile enough that a single human can manage dozens of them at once. Plus, they were the ultimate utility vehicle for early farmers. They pulled heavy plows, provided strong leather, and offered an enormous source of meat. And while cows might fail miserably in a freezing tundra or scorching desert, they absolutely thrive in temperate, grassy climates, which, completely by coincidence, is exactly where the world's most aggressively expanding agricultural societies were laying their roots. The cow was simply the right animal with the right attitude, standing in exactly the right pasture. And once those temperate climate societies started expanding, the cow went with them. Over the last 500 years, European colonial powers did not just export their languages and laws. They exported their entire agricultural landscape. They packed cattle onto wooden ships and sailed them across oceans. When they arrived in the Americas, Australia, and parts of Africa, they practically terraformed the land to fit the cow. Forests were cleared, native species were pushed out, and vast grids of fences went up. The cow became a four-legged colonizer, fundamentally reshaping entire continents to support a dairy-driven diet. Today, cow's milk is the global default, not because it is objectively the perfect nutritional fluid for every human on Earth. It is the default because the people who originally domesticated the aurochs just happened to conquer a huge chunk of the globe. Combine that historical lottery with the Industrial Revolution, pasteurization, and refrigeration, and you get a global empire of milk. We selectively bred the modern dairy cow into an extreme, milk-producing anomaly that pumps out over 10 times the volume her ancestors did. So, the next time you pour a splash of cold milk into your morning coffee, or bite into a thick slice of sharp cheddar, take a second to appreciate the sheer absurdity of it all. You are consuming a highly specialized maternal fluid, biologically engineered by ancient herders, accidentally tolerated by your mutated digestive system, and exported globally by imperial expansion. It is less of a foundational dietary staple and more of a massive, multi-millennial historical accident. And hey, if you enjoyed learning about that historical accident, please do me a massive favor and click the subscribe button. It takes 1 second, costs you $0, and it really validates the exhausting amount of time I spend animating these little stick figures. Seriously, my drawing hand is cramping, and the algorithm demands a sacrifice. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.